flag. For all that we have to be thankful for, to that person that you pray to. Thank you.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you all very much. Mr. Hammond, I guess we'll start with the approval of minutes by common consent. There are none. So we don't have to do it by common consent. All right, any old business?
I just have one thing.
Sure, Mr. Zuppel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Perhaps Mary can answer this, or Mr. McMahon. How much have we spent so far on fees for the LCA issue? And part two, was there an injunction filed against them so that they could start collecting? I know that we sued them, but was there an injunction filed?
George been working on the LCA situation, you can propose the budget, you can answer that.
Yeah, the injunction has been filed.
Okay, thank you.
We'll have to get you those numbers, because I have a list of all the fees that have been spoken
Okay,
of.
all right, thank you, thank you.
Okay, anybody else for old business? Council? Seeing nobody, how about communications? Any communications?
Courtesy of the floor. Courtesy of the floor.
Oh, yeah, I skipped it. All right, well, while we're doing communications.
President Clayton, I'm okay, if you want to keep rolling.
Just announced it. All right, before we go back to courtesy of the floor, are there any communications, so we can skip over that? All right, seeing none. Okay, now we're going to go back to courtesy of the floor. The rules are explanatory on the papers out there. You can speak to an issue that is not on the agenda tonight. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak if you're representing an organization. 5 minutes. Thank you. Sir.
David Cashel, Wabash Street, Allentown, president of Mountainville 30 Crime Watch. I have two concerns with safety. One is these concrete barriers on either side of Hamilton Street at 4th. Go across Hamilton, two concrete barriers. They are not painted anymore. You can't even tell there's ever paint on them. When you get to be my age, it's hard to see them sometimes at night. When we were coming tonight with the light coming through the trees, it was flashing. If it's a rainy night, they're very hard to see. I like to see either paint put back in or reflectors, so you can distinguish them very quickly.
Perhaps
Okay.
reflective paint.
Pardon?
Perhaps reflective paint.
Whatever, because it used to be, I guess it used to be a zebra stripe, white and black, and now it's just all washed off, worn off, and very gray, like part of the road. So, number two, who takes care of parking on sidewalks? Do the police do it driving around, or is it strictly the traffic, parking authority?
No, it's parking authority and the police.
Okay, because I've been up and down South 4th Street 3-4 times a day, and across from Pershing Auto Body and Anchor Fence. We came up tonight, there were 6 cars parked up on the sidewalk. Doesn't anybody ever see them?
I can address that if you don't mind. Call the parking authority.
Yeah, but they roll up the sidewalks at 3:30, and there's nobody around.
They're open till 5. They're there till 5 o'clock.
Trying to get an answer to the problem.
I'll address that one next
I
week.
appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
Good evening, my name is Chris Woods. I live on Walnut Street in 10th in Allentown. I'm here representing the Allentown Coalition for Economic Dignity. We're a group of community residents who organize around issues of affordable housing, a thriving school system, and livable wages in the city. We met with Mayor O'Connell about a month ago. He graciously gave us an hour and in fact stayed even extra with Mr. McMahon and Leonard Leitner. Since that time, we've been trying to reach City Council to meet with all of you to talk about the same 6 proposals we gave to Mayor O'Connell. I've emailed all of you at least once, some of you twice, and called Tanya Whitehead, the Deputy Clerk of the city. And I've heard a response from Councilperson Hendricks and Councilperson persons who call, only to say that the date I proposed didn't work. The other 5 of you I haven't heard back from. So I'm wondering, as representatives in a representative democracy, how you can ignore your constituents, and also what would be the best way to get in touch with you to schedule this meeting, because we are persistent on the fact that we should meet with you about these issues of affordable housing.
Well, I can tell you flat out, I'm way behind on my emails, and second of all, I don't think you can have a meeting with all of city council.
It doesn't have to be at the same time. We're hoping to meet with you individually.
Okay, well, you said the date, that was no good for those two, so, I would suggest contacting Tawana. She can check our schedules and she can coordinate, more than one meeting. It would have to be 2 or more.
Mr. President, if I could,
Here's my card.
I have your email.
My phone.
I've reached out already.
My phone.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Robinson.
thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to echo what President McLean said. For my industry, the summer is the busiest time. I apologize if I did not respond to your email. I am trying to play some catch up on it. Bless you, Mr. Young. Is this something you would be comfortable in terms of having it in a public meeting?
Do you mean at the council meeting in general?
Yes, or a committee meeting?
Sure, if that.
Okay, then I'm more than happy to work to schedule, Mr. President, a Community and Economic Development Committee meeting, and I would ask that everyone be present for that. At the end of the meeting tonight, let's talk, we can look at a date. I'll speak with Ms. Affa and Mr. Garidi about availability, and we'll set something up.
Great, that would be perfect, thank you.
My pleasure.
But if you need to talk to me, you can call me on my cell phone.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Can I say something? I did meet with Chris in this group, and that's a good suggestion. Yeah, good suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Good evening, Reverend Erica Lynn Bickford, 139 South Lumber Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania, owner of the oldest Halloween parade in America, Allen. Guys, Roger, I want to thank you for going over and looking at the stairs. It would be far cheaper to pay $50 to $100 to fill in those cement gaps on the walk at the top of South 11th Street and along the pathway than to have a lawsuit by somebody who falls down those stairs all the way. I'm still having pain in my knee from when I fell. And the other thing you need to do is add a rail on the South 11th Street side, so if somebody has something to grab to, if they do something to slide down there. There's also a lot of garbage underneath all those leaves. In the fall, when those leaves disappear, who's gonna put out the fire if the homeless people set a camp up and that hill catches fire? It'll be one of the biggest fires in the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Paulette Kish, 1028 East 2 Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania. I just have 3 quick issues. First of all, is a recycling issue where TV has been left on a curb for over a month. When I call recycle, they say they won't pick it up. And that's something I just don't understand. The second is, as far as...
Where is this? In front of your house? Or
It's
by your house?
at 1020 East 2 Street,
1020 East Chew.
correct?
The mayor's shaking his head. I think he'll have it taken care of.
Thank you. The second is as far as the swimming pools and lifeguard pay. It became to my attention that they were being paid what playground instructors were, and that's just ridiculous for what is needed. And I think if you pay your lifeguards, you'd have much better chance of having lifeguards at your pools. The bigger issue is, reading the paper today, I saw that Lindsay Taylor was let go, and that is something. My concern is the project she was working at Andre Reed Park. I'm on that committee. We had actually public meetings, and then I read something in everything was pretty much addressed regarding the grant for the spray park, and then I read something in the paper that was in question, all that we had done, and I really don't know the issue with Lindsay. My concern is that everything we worked so hard to establish that was pretty well established is still going forward at Andre Reed Park.
Yeah, so it will continue to go forward.
Okay.
It definitely will continue to go forward.
But when I saw something in the paper that kind of indicated that, well, then they were looking back at restoring the pool. And that was something that we had totally come to terms with, how to renovate the whole facility. Everything was all worked out with public meetings and everything.
The spray park that's the suggestion of the committee, correct?
Right, and the
Okay.
grant is there.
Right, exactly. That will continue to move forward, and we'll keep you posted with the Parks and Rec Department.
Thank you.
And don't believe everything you read in the paper.
I know that. It was just important because we worked hard on that committee.
I know.
We really have worked hard.
They had one very hard.
And I just wanted, and we're all very happy as to how that has progressed.
And it was it's a very good committee, and thank you for what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, Paula.
Mr. Mayor, we just want to correct that, except for what Emily writes.
She never has fake news.
Good evening, my name is Jennifer Miller, 1120 Club Avenue, Hometown, PA 18109. I am here because my two dogs got attacked by two loose dogs in park, and I've been trying to contact the police department to file a police report. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. And I've been trying to contact the police department to file a police report, which is under is my understanding that under PA Title III dog laws and Title 18 humane cruelty laws, that they're obligated to file a police report. But as of to date, no one will allow me to file a police report. I've contacted the mayor's office. I did receive a phone call from Captain Kaiser, but we've been playing phone tag, and I have not received a call back from him after 3 more phone calls.
Number one, I didn't catch your name, I didn't really catch what her complaint is.
Their dogs were attacked by 2 other dogs in the park.
Correct.
Correct, she's trying to file a police report.
Well, if you contacted the mayor's office, this is the first I'm hearing about it.
It wasn't, I
If
didn't
he's
speak
the
to
mayor.
you. No, I didn't speak to you, I spoke to a woman on the phone, and she said, let me contact the police and see what I can do for you. After that, I did get a phone call from Captain Kaiser, and he left me voicemail. I've called him back 3 times, and I haven't gotten a phone call back.
How long a period over that 3 phone calls?
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yes. I am working with the animal control. They are pressing charges, but it would be really great if I could get that police report before my court date.
It's really a simple thing.
I
If-
agree.
If we ever get the online report for some of this stuff, it would be great
We'll
too.
make it, look at it.
I have
The mayor will see that.
all the documentation needed, so if anybody needs it, it's here.
The mayor will see that Captain Kaiser contacts you, and then you'll have somebody else arrange to make that report for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you. Okay.
Anybody else for courtesy of the floor?
Hello, everybody. My name is Luis Collazos. It's been close to where I live in Franklin in Fairview, and it's a hydrant right there. But the car is being parked away from the hydrant, and I get a ticket. Of course, by getting report, I don't get my money back, but they get paid in my wallet. And but it's no pain, it's no distance, it's no, I guess the corners that need to be painted in yellow, whatever, to make a signal for anybody who park it. There's coming people from my family coming to the city, and they don't know much about, and I had a picture which you have a little distance, but there's no paint, there's no marks there.
But there doesn't have to be paint. You can't park within 15 feet on either side of a fire hydrant.
How I had to get it narrow, and they get to get it narrow, and measure the things, and like, well, this is far I can park.
If you don't wanna get
But
it-
they have to be signal, they have to be signal like a stop sign.
If you don't want to get a ticket, yes. I mean, you can judge 15 feet away. If you're parked 14 and a half feet, nobody's giving you a ticket, but,
But I don't know how far it's gonna be, the distance, but there is.
Mr. Messer, can we get lines painted at that fire hydrant?
We are actually actively going out to paint around all the fire hydrants that occur.
You're right.
Okay.
Right.
And I know they do it in the summer, and a lot of times it was summer help, but,
That's what we're doing right
yeah.
now.
Yeah, the corners and stuff like that, and that way people can be more aware about it.
But I just want you to know that you don't need the paint to make it legal.
This is how you get your license. You have to know that. To get a driver's license, you have to know how many feet.
I know that, yeah, but if the city, it give a signal like a stop sign, like a traffic light, and then, you know, we should be able to know. But without this, you cannot, but mentally, mathematics and philosophy doesn't work.
Mr. Messinger is gonna get it painted for you.
Oh, right.
So that you don't have to guess, and it'll ease you and your family.
I'll get a ticket, I came back to you.
No, you cannot. You can't be working within 15 feet.
But I hope I can see Marcus in the corner.
I think Mr. Messinger's moving it up to the front of the list.
I make it sure.
You're on the top of the list.
Yes.
Who's next? Come on, let's keep it rolling.
James Whitney, 112 Hamilton Street, representing Little Drill Creative Studios LLC. Can I have 5 minutes on the clock for letting an organization?
Go ahead, let's see if we need it.
Awesome. All right. My partner Shelby owns 1122 Hamilton Street and 625 Oak. She's a small business owner running a marketing and photography company. She and I moved to Seattle from Allentown 2 years ago, and since then we've invested every penny we have back into this city. Recently, we were thrilled to be awarded a much-needed match funds grant from Upside Allentown to upgrade the facade of our commercial building at 1122 Hamilton. It was a dream come true. The building is huge and the upgrades it needs are expensive. We were excited to collaborate with the grant's administrator, Pete Lunes, to create a facade treatment that worked for our business's aesthetic while honoring the rich history of the building. From day one, it was clear collaboration was not an option. Pete repeatedly cited the historical standards and guidelines of the Physical Improvements Committee over and over as reasons for shooting down our ideas and dismantling our vision for the property. We gently tried to persuade Pete to let us have a facade that would work with our business. It has a bright and modern aesthetic. Pete reacted by designing a facade that was the exact opposite of everything our business stands for. He somehow managed to design a facade that would actually be damaging to our business. He told us that our building absolutely had to be stained dark gray. These decisions were presented to us as mandates from the Physical Improvements Committee based on their strict historical guidelines. All attempts by us to reach a reasonable compromise were futile. It was like quicksand. The more we struggled, the worse things got. Pete seized control, citing over and over again this committee's strict historical rules. In an email from July 1st, Pete told us he might be able to increase our grant to $12,000, but we had only 24 hours to comply with his design, or he would reallocate the funds to someone else. As business owners and property owners, it was a hurtful and crushing ultimatum to be subjected to. In an effort to save our building and salvage the grant, we did tons of research. We discovered some disturbing information. Upside Allentown's Physical Improvements Committee has 5 principal objectives, and not one of them is related in any way to historic preservation or accuracy. All of the historic restrictions Pete had been citing seemed like complete fabrications. Jeff Brace is a Lehigh County Commissioner and co-chair of the Physical Improvements Committee. We spoke with him. He was refreshingly transparent and honest with us. He told us point blank, the committee has no opinions regarding what any building should look like. He told us all design decisions were delegated to Pete Lunes. We realized then that we had been manipulated by a guy who understood this program inside and out and still chose to have us believe in an imaginary set of strict historical mandates. Upside Allentown is co-managed by CADCA and the City of Allentown. So we're asking the city to step up and help us. $12,000 might not seem like much to you, but it's a life-changing amount for us. There's still time to reinstate the grant. Please don't allow CADCA to tell you that they've reallocated the grant to someone else or that there's no time to honor the grant. Don't let them convince you that we can reapply next year. Both Pete Lunes and Miriam Huertas informed us early on that if we didn't drop this, we may not be considered for future grants from either of their organizations. All applications for this grant, the facade grant, they get turned in directly to Pete Lunes. Pete told us in an email dated January 8th, 2018, that he was spending 2 weeks reviewing those applications before presenting any of them to the committee for consideration. 2 weeks. I'm going to give you one more quote from an email from Pete Lunez sent to us on January 10th. He said, "I've been lucky enough to have a boss's boss who felt the same way I did about building aesthetics, restoring and following historic preservation ethics, a program based on historical standards, and then free reign over the program for the first 8 years to really get everyone swimming in the right direction." Free reign. Merriam-Webster defines free reign as an unrestricted liberty of action or decision. Miriam-Huertas defines it as receiving that facade grant for her home, despite the fact that she lives far outside the program's area of focus. It seems like Pete Lunez defines it as awarding himself the grant twice and remodeling his own facades with zero regard for historic or architectural accuracy. The question for you is how you define that.
Can I address this? I have a question. Mr. Whitney, I have a question. You want to paint this, correct?
We want to stain the brick coat of the building white.
Now, according to Peter, it has to he wanted it back to its original. This is what they originally talked about, that it would be back so it would be brick, right? But on the other hand, after staying, pardon?
I thought you said gray.
No,
Pete had settled on, so
this is what I'm
originally,
saying, this is what I want to try to clarify.
yeah.
The first thing was that it had to be restored. And then he changed the rules to, yes, you could paint it, but it was to be painted his color, the color he wanted. Is that?
Sure. Well, I mean, to be clear, the rules don't state. The Upside Allentown Physical Improvements Committee, like I said, they have no historical guidelines. I mean, this is a grant that was set up by banks that tear down buildings and really don't want those historical guidelines coming back to bite them in the butt. So you can bet that the funding partners had no intention of putting historical guidelines into the Upside Allentown Physical Improvements Committee. Now, Pete originally said, "Oh yeah, your building, it's going to be back to the original red brick." And we said, "Well, Pete, you know, it's a commercial building and we have a business, and all of our business is done through social media and the internet, so we need a color that represents us online very well." So he said, "Okay, you don't want it to be the original red brick color? Well, here's the color that it's going to be." And even though we worked with a color specialist to come up with a shade of gray that would work better with us, he vetoed that color specialist that Upside paid $500 to and came up with this dark gray color. Now, the Allentown historical guidelines state clearly that painting brick coat, synthetic brick, to look like authentic brick is not something that they suggest. So his original premise of making it red brick would not have worked. So,
Let me, Mr. Mayor, is there somebody that he can work with in the city here to, you know,
I mean, I had,
kind of navigate through this process?
We talked James and I talked on Monday, it's kind of out of our purview, really, in the city, per se, and, because it's a community, and economic, CADCA, and Upside Allentown, but I think what Mr. Whitney, and he's done quite a bit of research and dropped some things off in my office yesterday, I believe. I think this is something that should be pursued, and I think that, I mean, we can take this up with the, you know, a community economic development committee, Mr. Robinson, and, you know, or any committee that, but I mean, it has to, you have to follow the guidelines that are set, okay? And there's no doubt about that. But I think, you know, talking to people and some of the little bit of my research I did, you gave me quite a bit, and I didn't get to all of it, but I think this is something you need to look at. But again, this is kind of out of the purview of the city. This is Upside Allentown. What do you get? What about? We talked about $500,000 to $550,000.
Sure.
To do this and all, and Peter Lewis is in charge, and obviously we checked this out with our Community Economic Development Corporation. Basically, they did what they had to do, and we gathered information from Pete Lewis and Dan Boskett, our Community Economic Development people. NPP grant funds were allocated to Upside Allentown for use by CADAS, facade program. It's a facade program. Application due, the whole bit. The owner is 1122 Hamilton Street, was selected as a recipient of the grant. They wanted the brick to be painted white, which was not approved by HARP. Okay, so we'll get HARP involved there. And basically, there could not be common ground, and tell me if I'm wrong, the deadlines for applications were June 30th. The reason that the applicant, then they would do their application for consideration, you did? Well, they did, and backed out of the program. The reason for withdrawal was could not be common ground with the design.
Sure. So just to be clear, HARB does not regulate paint colors. Pat Jackson knows that, everybody knows that. I would also say that if you have a well with $550,000 of private funds in it, and then you throw a penny of public funds into that well, then that money, all of it, every single penny, should be distributed with fairness and equality. I would also say that guidelines exist for a reason. The guidelines that you're stating, they just simply don't exist. But there are a ton of guidelines, and actually, the real leader of this company, no, it's okay, the real leader of this company is gonna tell you a little bit about it. But here's a quote from Allentown's historic guidelines. It says, paint colors are not regulated by Allentown's historic district. Now, if you'd like to say that paint colors are regulated by CADCA or by Upside Allentown or the Physical Improvements Committee, well, Jeff Grace, as a commissioner, he knows not to lie about this kind of stuff. He knows to not mince words. He knows that there are 5 guiding principles, and none of them have anything to do with historic restoration, historic preservation, or anything of the such.
All right,
so
okay, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna get your information to Mr. Hanlon, and when Mr. Robinson sets up a community and economic development meeting, we'll pursue this
Yes,
further.
and there were 2 things that I wanted to directly address. Mr. Mayor, we'll work on this together because I would like to try and have you, Mr. Leitner, and the rest of his staff there as well that would have a oversight of this, including Jesse, who deals with Upside. I do think there's a fair argument about the fact that there is a mixture of public and private money, so there does need to be some level of oversight. I know that there are other issues that have been happening with Upside, so I had a plan to try, as we moved into the fall, to invite Upside to come in front of the committee and make a presentation anyway. I think this is a good impetus for that. And also, because I see that Mr. Kimmerly is in the back, I just want to confirm with him that my understanding is correct, that the only regulation on Hamilton Street is the demolition overlay. Is that correct? The building you would have to weigh in.
We love this building with every ember in our
Oh,
being.
and
We would never demolish this.
Oh, no, I know, I just wanted understood that HARB, nothing to do with this, except for that one specific area. Thank you, Mr. Kimmerly. So, Mr.
Too, that those guidelines, the West End historic guidelines, they say painting simulated brick is acceptable. And
Wait a minute, we're way over 5 minutes.
Okay.
We're gonna deal with this in the committee, okay?
All right.
We will explore it
I hope
further,
so.
and we will try whatever we can to help you out.
Thank you.
And come to a reasonable decision.
Thank you.
Solution. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Shelby Edwards, Little Drill LLC, 1122 Hamilton.
Okay, not everybody from the LLC gets the 5 minutes, so you're free.
I understand also that one of the council members can motion for extra time.
You just had extra time. Please.
Right.
You're on the clock. Go ahead.
Okay, nobody.
At least reset
I'm
the
gonna be
clock.
fast then. At Little Drill, we create visual context for a living. So I wanted to share a little visual context with you here tonight. The picture I've handed you is a rendering of our dream facade for 1122 Hamilton Street. In an email sent to us by Pete Lunes on July 2nd, Peter said, "Your building was originally a red brick building. Our Upside Allentown Physical Improvements Committee will not allow the building to be painted white. In fact, when we met last week, they balked at the idea of it, and I mentioned that we were staining with a more historic color of darker gray. So to be clear, this design was deemed so historically inaccurate, it was worth balking at and revoking the grant we were awarded. I'd like to share with you some exciting highlights which represent just a portion of the research we've done, and we've done a lot. We've shared our facade's design with local respected historians who each gave their blessing and confirmed the historical accuracy of our design. Among those respected historians was Joseph Herrera, he's the executive director at Lehigh County Historical Society. Lauren Golden, Vice President of Allentown Preservation League and architectural historian with a master's on the topic, explained that she would change the door and the gooseneck lights to something more appropriate for the style of the building, but besides that, it looked great. We also shared the renderings with Frank Whalen, who I'm sure you're all fairly aware of. He told us that it is an accurate representation, and it reminded him of the Chancery House on 526 Walnut Street, a house where the current owner, who told us personally about his father, who meticulously restored the property and left the painted brick house white out of respect for historical accuracy. The facade design is in complete harmony with Allentown historic guidelines. The Hamilton District facade guidelines state that historic or contemporary design solutions are both acceptable. I'm going to try to find the most compelling parts. I'll leave you with a few other historical buildings that were originally white. Haynes Mill, built in 1840, the Brass Rail, which opened across the street from our building in 1931, and lastly, Hess's Department Store, opened in 1897 on Hamilton Street.
I personally like the lights.
Thanks.
That's nice. Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Sir. Come on.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Aaron Collins, and I'm summer intern here at Little Joe Creative. And I moved here 2 years ago from Brooklyn, New York. I never had the opportunity to get to know Allentown because I attended boarding school for most of the year. But interning at Little Joe, I did have the opportunity to get to know this wonderful town that is Allentown. Working at Little Joe has taught me a lot. I've learned about myself as an artist. I've learned how to survive in this world as a creative person. Most of all, I've learned to love Allentown for what it is, a true hidden gem. When I first moved to Allentown, I saw a bleak and gloomy abandoned factory town that could not possibly offer anything to a young New Yorker such as myself. But then I began to work in Allentown and see for what it truly is. And thanks to my bosses here at Little Joe, I was able to see this historic mecca of buildings that deserve to be treated as for what they are, their gems, and they need to be restored. And Allentown's a beautiful city that has so much potential, but it's in desperate need of an economic boost. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Glad you like it here, too.
You're welcome.
Nice. 1122 Hamilton.
Yes.
Just state your name.
I just want to say that I would like to urge council to really think about this. I met Shelby and James as a result of my appointment to the Parks Board at a meeting earlier this year. They are extremely passionate about Allentown. Their building is beautiful. This is exactly what you guys want. You want young people to come into your city and revitalize this and, pardon my French, give a shit. They give a shit. And I think this is important that you guys look into this and really give some consideration to this, because this is what Allentown needs. People who care, a beautiful city, and this is just something that is really important to me, and I really hope that you guys take some consideration with us. Thank you.
I can guarantee you Mr. Robinson will follow up with this in his committee. Sir.
Good afternoon, my name is Enrique Moreno. I just come to here this evening my first time, but I live here like 20 years already in Allentown. So I want to try to believe, for the constable in here, this office, I just try to so many issues in the town. I try to represent the Lehigh Valley Crime Authority and Ponting Park, and Martin Luther King. So, and I live in my address 33 North Franklin Street, Allentown. So I have my house for at least 20 years, right? So, and I do my best work, with my family, my wife and my daughter. So I already got my house paid off and stuff like that. So I want to try, pay the taxes every year. Well, I don't know if these police, I try to see with who I can speak to get help, how they work together, with the park for my family. People enjoy back to me, if you can speak Spanish and English, because some people, they cannot allow to speak English. So I speak English, I help my dad, speak English. So I try to help it, sometimes I can't do it, I have a work to do. So what I have to do, I just appreciate the mayor, Willie Reedy, we try to talk to see what's the best we can work together. They give you a meeting, because I go into the park recreation, I talk about first from the park, the everybody is Spanish. Only one day in the week, we enjoy everybody each Sunday in the summertime. So we go into the park recreation and I ask them, for something, what happened with the garbage? What happened with the bathroom? Something like that. We have to charge the people, live here for renting a power bathroom with kids going in the park and play basketball and stuff like that. So we can pay from my pocket. And I have to collect people, collaboration I need to rent one bathroom for $125 a month, like a rental, and somebody come and use it or damage, That's not my job. We have to work with somebody in the city, my town. So I just asking who can help. I have to go into the mayor. And I go into the park recreation, they have the decision, but if they own all the city, all the park. So I ask them, put something, I see a garbage like this container for bottle recycle and garbage for the people, the kids don't go and throw in the floor. That's the job from the park recreation. They have people, they go and clean. Who pick them out when nobody around there? The garbage is no bucket, no nothing in the park. So all issue, it's a lot of issue. Who can work with this complaint about it? I appreciate for they put a net in the wall. I have 10 balls each Sunday, the ball going to the river. The river in the back. The river just last Sunday, they have a lot of grass, and the people live in the street, they just live in the back of the wall. Who look at that, and somebody maybe a kid going back there, pick up the ball or something, what happened with that, what dangerous,
Let me see if I understand your problem here quickly. You're saying there's not enough trash receptacles, or there are no trash receptacles?
I ask him for no trash, I ask him for no bathroom in the park. I tell him, the ball going to the river, every summertime, like 10 ball, for people to play soccer. We pay the field to the park, we pay every.
I think there was an issue with the payment though, too, if I'm
Yes, Uncle.
correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Right, and
we're not gonna build a wall so the ball doesn't go into the park, into the water. That you're gonna have to deal with.
Well, that's what I said, we work with the payment, with the supervisor. I tell him one person, his name is Chris Highland, something like that. I tell him, I want to speak with the supervisor of the park recreation to what's going on with issue, because the payment for the park, I have payment plan. The people play, they say they think it's free, the park. The park is not free, you understand? So I tell them, explain to everybody, they come and go every Sunday for this one time summer, we charge you like 3,000 something every summer. So we have to collect from the people all that.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I think
we continue to work with the Spanish Soccer League, okay?
Yep.
On their issues, we have issues, they gotta play by the rules, they gotta pay, or they don't play. That's the bottom line. We try to work together, but I go down there on a Sunday, I go by, I don't stay there, but I go by there on Sunday night. It's a mess. It is a mess. Okay? Part of the responsibility of renting a park is clean up, okay? We cannot build bathrooms down here. We have priorities when we're gonna build bathrooms. We have porta johns. We're doing the best we can, but they have to play by the rules, pay what they do, and they did. They cleaned that up this week, or they weren't gonna play. They don't pay, they don't play. That's the bottom line. We will work with them. I met with this gentleman, I met with that, I met with this guy.
The mayor had to talk to God Sunday, he's gonna be the referee.
Sir. But I mean, we continue to have a problem, and it's people drinking alcohol. And they get wound up.
This has been going on for years.
And that's, the police.
This is the issue.
And it's not, look, they're in charge of the league. they can't control everybody, but they got to place, you can't drink alcohol in the parks.
Right.
Okay? And the police spend time down there on Sundays when they could be doing something else on the east side or the south side. I'm not knocking these guys. They're trying to do the best they can, but they gotta begin to clean up their act a little bit, and they're not gonna play downtown next year.
All right, so you were working with them?
I'm working with them.
As well as you can, okay.
And I'm also, last year, I did help them out,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm willing to work with them also. I will do the translation and, you know, I am in agreement that they do have to follow, you know, the rules. But the positive things that are here, and they're stating, you know, a problem. And like I heard them, they were saying that, you know, the garbage. It said that they don't, you know, when do they pick up the garbage? They play on Sunday. When do the garbage go by? Excuse me, give me 1 second, sir.
I think the problem is the garbage is strewn across the field. The garbage is strewn across the field. It's not like it's all in bags sitting
Yeah,
there.
well, that's getting a little better. That's getting a little better. If I'm putting it in bags and recycling things, that's getting a little better. We pick it up the next day, Monday.
Okay, all right. So we'll have a meeting with you guys, okay? Mr. Hanlon, he will give you my phone number, and we can have a meeting. And also, Mr. Garrido, you were talking with them too.
I asked them to come with the council and explain, because they called me many times. And I just didn't have the time, because they just kept talking to me and calling me, and I gave them the information. And they kept calling, and I said, look, you gotta come over to city council and explain it, because I just don't have the time to answer, you know, to be on the phone for an hour saying the same thing. Now, the issue is, you gotta pay in order to use the parks. And hold on, the other issue is, and I just heard that you are paying. You have to follow the rules, okay? I think you're asking for support with the trash, basket, okay? So can we provide some, I'm not sure, do we provide the trash, baskets?
There's a trash can,
So probably can do that, but you gotta clean up afterwards.
We'll work on that.
So, no. You gotta do follow the rules. I'm not in the Parks and Recreation, Cynthia Mota is the Parks and Recreation, but I can only give you advice. And I cannot talk to you for an hour at a time or 2 hours just telling you the same thing.
We'll work with them.
Yes, Councilwoman Mota is gonna work with you guys, sir. We're gonna set up a meeting outside of council meeting. We've heard the complaints, you heard what has to be done, you can meet with her and the parks people, and you guys can work something out.
That's what we want, thank you.
That's what you're getting.
Thank you. I'll schedule with Christie, yeah, and them.
Anybody else with courtesy of the floor? Seeing nobody, let's move on. We did communications, we did approval, we did old business, we're at the presentation of the 2018 Watson Skinner Award to Diane Fagley. And let me just read a little bit about the Watson Skinner Award. Watson Skinner served on Allentown City Council between 1974 and 1990, including terms as president. He became the mayor's assistant for economic development, which paved the way for the creation of the Allentown Economic Development Corporation. He was the first person to hold the position of executive vice president of the Allentown Economic Development Corporation. He hosted a weekly radio program on the local cable television programs Community Spotlight and Ideas Under Fire. He served as chairman of many community organizations, including Rotary, CADA, and the Allentown Reinvestment Committee. Watson proudly served on the board of St. Luke's Hospital. After moving on from city council, Watson's love of Allentown never diminished, and he remained ever involved in community development and volunteerism until his death in 2012. And this is a quote, "I have a very strong love affair with Allentown and its citizens. I don't try to explain it, it's there." Watson Skinner shared this during a speech in November of 1987. Watson began a long, successful teaching career at Copley High School and finished his career at South Mountain in the Allentown School District, retiring after 32 years as a math science teacher and guidance counselor. And this award is given to somebody and in accordance with his family. Is the family here? Yes, yep, they're here. If the family wants to stand up here, is Diane's here? Yes. Okay, Diane, if you want to come forward, I'll just read that. This is the Watson Skinner Award presented to Diane Fagley in recognition of improving the quality of life for Allentown residents. If you would just step up here. Diane, if you were in the family, if either any of you would like to say anything, please.
I just want to say a little bit about Diane and my great-grandfather. Both of them share a love for this city that is just unprecedented. I want to thank City Council for helping us set this up year in and year out. Her help with women throughout the city, homeless, and help.
People just wants to interject something here.
Yes, you kind of took the words I was going to use, but, you know, if there was ever a steward of this city for the homeless, it's this young lady right here. We're friends on Facebook, and, you know, she has done countless things and has used countless hours from her family to help the homeless, provide shelter for the homeless, collect funds for they have a roof over their heads. And in addition to that, as he mentioned, her husband Rich back there is holding their little adopted son. So she not only cares for the old, she cares for the young. So I can't think of a more deserving person for that award than you. And thank you guys for choosing her.
I just want to quick say some words. I'm super nervous, and it's been a while since I've been here, obviously. I'm super honored. I can't thank the family enough for choosing me. It came completely out of the blue, and I very much appreciate it. As noted, with our son, I've been kind of busy. He was diagnosed with autism, and I think we're up to 7 therapists right now, so it's been a little overwhelming. I do still maintain a Facebook page for the warming station, and I hope to find out what's going to happen next year. I may be making some phone calls with some of you to follow up on that, but I'd love to be involved in any capacity with what's going to be a shelter for this coming year. And it was really important to me today to bring Chris Coca. I have to give him a shout out because it was Chris who brought the homeless problem to my attention many years ago. He was the one that I pointed out that the homeless were sleeping on the floor of St. Paul's right behind the Brew Works. And, you know, it was through Chris that I became involved, and then it was with Chris that we worked on housing 22 different homeless people that one year. And one of those homeless people is here, and it means a lot to me because they always say in working with the homeless that relationships are what help you help them. And I'm very happy that all these years later I can still consider her a friend, as well as a few other people that are here still in the city and haven't passed. And you know, I think that's one of the hardest things of working with the homeless is knowing they have a shorter life expectancy, and having lost some of our dear friends, including the gentleman that had died in the dumpster a couple years ago. He was one of the initial people we worked with. So I'm hoping to work with the Skinners and to help the people I call the true angels on the street, the people like Rooster working with the over 800 homeless school children that we have. We did do a fundraiser at the Brew Works recently. And then there's the parish nurse at St. Paul's. Her name is Jackie Howells. Her husband actually works for the city. And again, those are the true angels. And it's those people that, you know, from behind the scenes now that I try to help, whether raising money or with different efforts for whatever they happen to need. And I'm really looking forward to working with the Skinners and carrying on their grandfather and great-grandfather's memory in this coming year. So thank you very much, all of you, for your support and this award.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to reports from committees. I believe the first one we're going to postpone to early August. Committee of the whole meeting. Right? The first one, confirmation, we're going to postpone till August. Is there Anybody wants to have it the 25th, or do we want to move it to August? August, okay. We talked about that one, we'll move that to the beginning of August. Budget and Finance, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Budget and Finance Committee met this evening. We went over the CAFR report, which is the audit report that we do for the city, commissioned by City Council, and made some recommendations, and we're aware of what happened in 2017 budget by independent auditor. We will have a next meeting next week, actually on the 25th at 6 o'clock p.m. right here at council meeting, council chambers, and we will go over the financial reports for June. May and June.
Unless you want to change your mind and discuss council.
Well, we'll post the date. We may change the date to the next council meeting, so we post it, depending on how the committee is. We can make that decision tonight, so, I don't know, Ms. Bolton, Mr. Hendricks, who are the committee. Just before the meeting? Okay, so it would be, 6 o'clock?
We'll work it in there sometime.
Okay, so it will post it in the website.
It'll be the first meeting in August.
Yeah.
Before the first meeting in August, okay.
Thank you, sir, that's what happened.
Thank you, Mr. Garidi. Community and Economic Development, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met last week on July 11th. We forwarded a bill favorably, which is on tonight's agenda, and we recommended a hard denial, which is also on tonight's agenda. The next meeting has not been scheduled, but as we determined from courtesy of the floor, CED will be quite busy in August. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Human Resources Administration appointments, Ms. Hopper.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met on July 11th. The next meeting is not scheduled.
Thank you very much. Parks and Recreation, Ms. Moda.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has not met since the last council meeting, and the next meeting is not scheduled.
Thank you very much. Public Safety, Mr. Hendricks.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has not met since last meeting. No future meeting is planned at this time.
Thank you. Public Works, Mr. Zuko.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee's met this evening. There'll be two bills talked about later, bills 3839, and the next meeting has not been scheduled.
Thank you very much. Rules Chambers Intergovernmental Relations and Strategy, that's me. We have not met, and a future meeting is not scheduled. Now we go to the ever-anticipated Controller's Report.
Well, I hate to disappoint you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening, however,
That's not what it says on here, it says Controller's Report.
I will pay your patience back in spades, because I will have reports on both meetings in August.
That'll be fine, I have vacation scheduled for both. Thank you. Report from administration, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Managing Director.
Yeah, just one item to report. We were notified by the Lehigh Valley Roadrunners. You know that group, they do a great job for the city of Allentown, and they have the Allentown School District. But we were notified on Monday that Allentown is one of the 5 recipients in the nation to be named, I guess, Running City USA, or whatever you want to call it. We're getting more information from Neil Novak, and obviously we'll bring that forward and when we have the final details. But only we're one of 5 in the whole nation, so that's an honor. And again, if you know anything about the Lehigh Valley Roadrunners over at the Parkway, they do a great job.
I stopped running in the Parkway because of them, because they would all run past me.
They give away about $50,000 to $60,000 a year in scholarships. So Neil's going to come to one of the council meetings and talk exactly what they do and about your work also. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Mayor. Mustafa, we have appointments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we have 3 appointments tonight. The first one is Property Rehabilitation and Maintenance Code Board of Appeals. That would be Ellen Moser. Her term would expire 2021. Do I have any comments from my colleagues on Ellen Moser? Seeing none. Anyone from the public? Seeing none.
It's always easier if you vote on these all at once.
We should, all 3 of them, okay. All right. The next one is the Vacant Property Review, Invited Property Review Committee. It is Nicholas Miller. His appointment expires 2020. Any comments from my colleagues? Any comments from the public? All right, we'll move on to Anthony K. Hespeth, Environmental Advisory Council, as council representative. His term will expire January 1st, 2020. Any comments from my colleagues on him? Also, anybody from the public? Seeing none, do we have a vote?
Ms. Zappa?
Yes on all three.
Ms. Grady? Mr. Hendricks?
Yes on all three.
Ms. Moda?
Yes on all three.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes, all three.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
President, 7 yeas in their days.
That's it with you.
Thank you very much. And just so the people in the audience know, council gets information on these people that are appointed. We're just not throwing names out here. We do get to review the names. First, are there any of them here?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention, is there anyone here? I'm sorry. Do you want to come up and address the council? Congratulations. Who are here?
Hi, my name is Anthony Hespeth. I'm on the south side, 1215 South Bradford Street, downtown. And environmental issues are very near and dear to me. I have an environmental engineering degree from Temple University. And as a lot of people, you know, you go to college and you study something, but it's not necessarily what you do when you grow up. Well, it gives me a chance to come for a circus, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you and putting forth some of my skills to help develop the city. And thank you very much for the appointment.
Thank you, and thank you for your time too. Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you, council, for the vote of confidence. I'm committed to this city. I'm buying a 5-unit investment property at the 8th and Walnut. I'm a lifelong Allentonian, fits at my 4th generation. I currently work at IBM as a management consultant and a Penn State graduate. I'm young, but I want to energize the millennial generation, and I look forward to serving the city.
Thank you very much, and thank you for donating your time too. Appreciate it. Okay, ordinances for final passage. Mr. Hanlon, Bill 35.
Bill 35 amends the capital fund budget to provide for a supplemental appropriation of $100,000 for BGI the city for installation of handicap ramps on Walnut Street from 10th to 15th Street. It's part of a cost sharing program.
I believe these were in committee. Your committee, Mr. Zupa? All right, and they were sent to full council favorably, I believe. Whose committee was it?
Who's Public Works a real one?
Public Works. Okay.
Before the break.
Yep. Okay. Nothing from the administration? Anything from the public? Mr. Henry, call the vote.
Mr. Greedy?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Ms. Moda?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko? Yes. Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Zappa?
Yes.
Mr. President, 7 yeas and 2 nays.
Thank you, sir. Bill 37.
Bill 37 amends the 2018 general fund budget by adding a total of 3 positions in the Bureau of Building Standards and Safety, 2 housing inspectors, each budget at an annual salary of $50,560, and 1 clerk at 8M budgeted the annual salary of $44,045.
Okay, and this one was also in committee and sent favorably to the full council. Any comment from the administration?
Oh, well, if the administration has no comment, I can just give a report from the committee meeting.
Sure, go ahead.
So this was in the Community Economic Development Committee meeting. We met last week. The purpose behind this is that we need to maximize our rental unit inspections as well as our pre-sale inspections. The money is not currently being used for vacant positions in the electrical, plumbing, and building inspection, and also the combined inspectors, because we have some vacancies there. And we're going to use this specifically for the rental inspection, which is dedicated money, and then also for the pre-sale inspections. And the clerk, and correct me if I am wrong on this, the clerk is for the rental inspection, correct? Pre-sale, I'm sorry, okay. And the only other thing that was brought up in the committee meeting It was brought up actually by Mr. Hirschman about why they were coming in at step Ds in the budget. And the reason for that is because these are union positions and we need to have the full amount of money budgeted if the most senior potential people could fit into the job. If it is not someone of that senior level, then they will be paid less than the amount that is budgeted. So, thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. Administration, anything?
Yeah, I just echo what Mr. Robinson said. These positions are very, very needed, okay, if we want to continue the rental inspections and the pre-sales inspection. And a lot of work went into this to present this to Mr. Robinson's committee, and I encourage you to vote yes.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, just one thing, Mr. Mayor, it was not brought up in the committee, but I wanted to bring this up tonight, which is if we can work, especially now that we're adding another pre-sale inspector, something that I, as living in a historic district, see being a usual problem is the pre-sale inspectors will go through the house and they will make recommendations of things that have to be brought up to code. A good example is porch railings. Whereas in Harb, the porch railings actually have to be lower than they are in the code in the historic districts because of historical characteristic. And we create a problem in which the pre-sale inspector will tell them they have to get it fixed, then someone will make a complaint to Harb, and Mr. Kimmerly will have to come by and say, well, no, you have to take that out and put it back. So if we could make sure to do some due diligence on cross-training for the pre-sale inspectors, just to make sure that when they're in a historic district, they know that certain things that might be standard on the west end and south side aren't standard in that historic district.
Will be done, so noted.
Thank you much, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It was just something brought to my attention recently, so thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, to the public. Sorry, did you want to say? No. I don't want to skip over you, Jen. You look like you're reaching for the button. Mr. Hanlon, call the roll, please.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Ms. Moda.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Zuko.
Yes.
Mr. McLean.
Yes.
Zappa.
Finally, at last.
Yes. Mr. Grady.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Bill 38, please.
38 provides for the vacation of a portion of Watson Street from the center of line of South 10th Street, in westerly direction, 125 feet more or less to the southwest corner of the lot with the address 2332 South 10th Street.
There's another one on the next page. Oh, I see Bill 39. I'll wait the bottom. Okay, Bill 38. All right, anything from council?
This was brought before Public Works and was sent favorably.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zuckel. Anybody else from council? Anybody from the public? Mr. Hanlon, vote.
Ms. Moda.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Zuko.
Yes.
Mr. McLean.
Yes.
Zappa.
Yes.
Mr. Greedy.
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
None of them yeas.
Okay, now we move to Bill 39.
Bill 39 provides for the vacation of a portion of Y Street from the center line of South 4th Street to the center line of a vacated South Jordan Street.
Thank you very much. Anybody from council? Mr. Zuckel.
Also Public Works, Mr. President, was sent favorably.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in council? Anybody in the public? Mr. Hanlon, vote.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Zuko.
Yes.
Mr. McLean.
Yes.
Ms. Zappa.
Yes.
Mr. Greedy.
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Ms. Moda.
Yes.
Mr. President, 7 yeas, no nays.
Thank you very much. Now we have resolutions for final passage. R88, please.
R88 is a denial of a certificate of appropriateness at 245 North 9th Street.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
This was in front of the Community and Economic Development Committee as well last week. This was also forwarded unanimously, favorably. This is a situation in which security cameras were requested to be put on a building. A hard meeting was scheduled. The property owner did not show up, nor did any representatives. A second meeting was scheduled. Again, no one showed up, nor did any representatives. In the meantime, the cameras were put up, even in a way that did not follow the HARB guidelines, even though that information had been provided to the property owner. So the HARB board brought this forward as a denial. At the meeting, representatives of the property owner did arrive. We explained to them that unfortunately, because they had not attended the HARB meetings, that there's really nothing that we could do at this point. I do hope that they spoke with Mr. Kimmerly afterwards to try and move this forward, but because of the time frame involved, we do need to favorably vote on this denial, and I would just recommend my colleagues do that, and unless Mr. Kimmerly has anything else, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. I see you moving front, so maybe there's something. I was at that meeting also, and you're right, we do have to move forward on this, and I believe they were contacting each other so they can try and work something out. Sir.
The only thing that I would add is because the cameras were installed already, that if this is upheld by council, that they will be treated as a violation, and they'll get a violation notice. And the option in the violation notice is to remove the cameras or to apply to HARB, in other words, come to HARB again, essentially, and discuss with the board, methods of trying to make the cameras that currently exist on the building fit in. Some of them may have to be removed, some of them may have to be moved to different locations, and there may be some way possibly to paint them and paint a conduit, which is also on the building, to make them fit in. So
basically what you're saying is the homeowner has the opportunity to work with HARB.
Correct.
To correct the situation.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else from council? Sir, you wanted to say something on this?
My name is Nelson Vicente.
Come up to the microphone, please, quick.
Yeah, I know we're having a late night, so pretty much what I want to let everyone know in this room was that the cameras that we are working with Mr. Kimberly and the owner, and I want to deeply stress the safety and security of the tenants of the utmost concern. As a result, we contracted Shield Security of the Lehigh Valley to install a high-definition 8-camera system. Without the cameras present on the building, how are we able to ensure the safety and security of our tenants? Today, at 10 o'clock a.m., we had a break-in, and a police report was made with the police department. We would lose tenants if we do not have these cameras put up. We would like to take extensive measures to hide the cameras. We will be willing to paint all the conduit and cameras to match the color of the building. This would keep the historic integrity of the building while still allowing us to provide a safe and secure environment for our tenants and our community.
And we want the same thing. And nobody wants you to take the cameras down. What we want you to do is work with Mr. Kimmerly to make sure that they fit into the historic area.
Sure. So in this packet here, I have all the live camera feeds. I have some information that I just wanted to leave with you guys.
If you want to leave it with Mr. Hanlon, that'll be fine, but please make sure you work with Mr. Kimmerly though too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. President, I just wanted to emphasize one thing for the audience, because most of them are not here when we had the committee meeting, to what you just said. The HARB guidelines do allow for security cameras and systems to be installed, but they have to follow specific guidelines. So I don't want anyone to think that the HARB guidelines do not allow security systems or cameras. They do, just within specific guidelines. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. And again, sir, make sure you work with Mr. Kimmerly, because you're going to have to file an appeal, and that will give you time to take care of this stuff and work with HARB.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Mr. Hanlon, the vote.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Ms. Zappa?
Yes.
Mr. Greedy?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ms. Rhoda?
Yes.
Mr. President, 7 yeas and no nays.
Thank you very much. R89.
R89 authorizes for the disposition of certain records within the state historical guidelines.
Any questions from council?
My only question is, what records there are, and who, I guess that's an administrative issue, right?
Yeah, it's, when the FBI came in and raided, July 2nd, 2015, we were told to keep all records, okay, and we were told to keep them for a long time, okay? So what we're doing now is we're cleaning up our records. We're going to be disposing of, like, I think it's 2015, and we'll come back in November for 2016, 2017. But we could have waited till November to do all 3 years, which would be overwhelming, okay, project. So we're piecemealing the disposition of the records.
Okay, my only question is, did we get clearance from the court to be able to do this?
Yes.
Okay.
And these are all, I'm assuming that these are all records from, because you have to keep them 5 years, I think. So also, we're talking about the old records.
Yeah,
Real old.
yeah, these, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll double check that, but we're following the guidelines of what we've done, what we've done in the past practice.
Mr. Reed, just to say, because I have some questions on Bureau of Building Standards records, and we're looking at here, 2008 invoices for safety inspections, 2006 and 7 rental licenses, 2005 rental licenses, 2000 and 2004 rental license billing, and the destruction years are from 2011 to 2015. So to answer you, yes, these are rather old records.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Public.
I did have one or two questions.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, I know we have the clearance to destroy these, and I'm just curious, so when we look at building standards, when we're talking about, just say, the rental license billing, do we have, if there were violations from a particular property owner, is that maintained in their files separate from the files that we are destroying?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, and I would assume, Mr. Hartzell, the same could be said for tax records or anything to that effect?
Nothing would be going into that, I mean, whatever would meet the criteria of what can be removed, we adhere to that.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure with that, and then with these records, they are anything that has already needed to have been preserved has been preserved. Because it's such a large group of records being destroyed, I just wanted to make sure of that.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robinson. Public. Mr. Hanlon.
Mr. McLean.
Yes.
Ms. Zappa.
Yes.
Mr. Reedy.
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Ms. Moda.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Zuko.
Yes.
Mr. President, 7 yeas and no nays.
Thank you very much. Bill 40, ordinances for introduction. Bill 40.
Bill 40 renames a portion of South 4th Street from Union Street to Martin Luther King along the west side of South 4th Street to Parkettes Lane.
And that will be referred to Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Bill 41.
41 amends general fund and capital fund to provide for supplemental appropriation of $666 as a result of a payment for tree damage caused by an auto accident.
Well, we'll send that one to Public Works. That'll probably take you a long time on that one there.
Yeah, that has me nervous.
All right, thank you. Bill 42.
Bill 42 amends the 2018 general fund budget to provide for a supplemental appropriation of $10,000 from the Women's 5K Classic in Steve Allentown to promote breast and cervical cancer screening.
Okay, that will go to Community and Economic Development. Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm always happy to take any money anyone's willing to give us, especially when it goes to the Health Bureau.
Bill 43.
43 amends the capital fund budget to provide for supplemental appropriation of $7,500 to Iron Dick's Charities to the city to assist with the completion of the dog and skate parks.
That will go to Parks and Recreation, Ms. Moda.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Bill 44, sir.
44 amends Part 17 of the building code and the property rehab code by updating the date which the fee will be due and increasing the amount due after the due date from $100 to $155.
That will go to Mr. Robinson and Community and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Bill 45, please.
45 amends the solid waste fund budget, stormwater fund budget for a total of combined supplemental appropriation of $33,911.20 as a result of a grant from the county of Lehigh for the SEPA pilot program.
That will be Public Works. That will be Mr. Zuko.
Thank you, sir.
And I note that all the bills for introduction went to this side of the diet.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, we have no resolutions for introduction. Any new business?
On the issue of the grant, Mr. Whitney and Shelby, I'd like to make a statement on how, echoing what she said about young people coming into the city. They came from out west, they love the city, and this is what we're looking for. We're looking for young people to come in here. They're willing to put their heart, soul, and their money into building a better Allentown. I know them, I went to their property, I took pictures, I looked at it, I listened to their concerns, and I have to agree with them as far as we can't make it this difficult, time after time, for people to come into this city. And we have a historic area. You buy a home here, you know what you have to do. But if you're on Hamilton Street, you have a business, and you want to be on Turner Street, you want to open a grocery store, these are things that we need to address, that when these people come in here into this town, we can't make it difficult for them about a paint job. So I'm glad Mr. Courtney and I were, Mr. Robinson and I were in contact with both of them and decided that we do want this committee and we need this committee, and we need to have them feel comfortable here. They did their due diligence, they researched everything, and that my comment is, let's make it easier for people to come into our city and make a living, and give them a hard time about the paint job. That's all I need to say.
You know, if I may, Mr. President, I totally support what you just said. I said it many times here in this dais, and I actually talked to the mayor earlier before, regards to customer service.
Yes.
And it is something, I'm going to reserve my other comments when we get to the committee meeting that Mr. Robinson is scheduling. But I totally agree with what you just said. I agree with what you presented today. Well presented, well said, very eloquently put, and I really enjoyed listening to how you say what you said. It's an issue that many other people cannot say as well as you did.
Well spoken and very passionate. I love that. Thank you.
You have support on council, and like I said, I know Mr. Robinson will make sure it's taken care of in this meeting.
The only thing that I would add to Mr. Greedy and Ms. Affa's comments as the committee and Ms. Moda is there's a concern that we have that with all the development going on in the city, we've lost some of our history. And there's been a lot of complaint that we have not done enough to protect other parts of our history. And we have to be very aware of the fact that our historic districts are very important and they add to our character and they actually can be an economic development engine for the city. And issues in which people assume that historic preservation is just the taste police make that mission that much harder and that much more difficult. So we do need to address this issue. The committee will hold hearings, the administration will participate, and we will try to come to some type of equitable solution. Thank you, Mr. President.
I agree, and I think I'm going to follow Ms. Affa's lead and call you Mr. Courtney from now on.
As long as it's not Mr. Ed, that's all I ask.
I want to be Miss Candida.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Candida. All right. Food and welfare?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
I'm so sorry.
No, you want adjournment, that's next. Mr. Zuko.
Just one quick thing, this Saturday from 4 to 8 on Hamilton Street, I think it's between 6 to 9, they have the Classic Cars Custom Show thing they're gonna have, and at 7:45, those cars, if they want to, are going to drive out to the Ritz Barbecue, where in the olden days, that's where they laid the rubber down and had the malts and milkshakes. So if you want something to do and it's not raining, come on out. Craig, don't feel bad if I beat you in the contest.
One quick thing, in addition to that, brought me to the attention that we're not going to be here before this event happened, but July 29th is the Puerto Rican parade. We're all attended, and it's going to be out of, we have a flag raising ceremony here in City Hall, and then we'll be marching down to Jordan Park. It's a nice event, and you know, I know it's Puerto Rican, but everybody's invited. So I know that Mr. Zuko is going to be driving his 1963 Chevy Bel Air there. And I must say, my first car was a 1963 Chevy. Mine was an Impala with the 3 lights in the back. This was a Bel Air. And I think you had a 62. It's older than we are, so you know, 62.
Oh, Thunderbird.
Steve.
You beat that.
What did you young guys have? What did you have, 2000?
I didn't have a driver license yet.
2002.
Okay, I think we beat that one to death. Now, do I have a motion?
Motion, so moved.
Okay.